Making a bikini top is very easy. So today we're going to do a step-by-step tutorial where I'm going to show you every step it takes to make a bikini so that you can make your own. So let's get started. For your materials, you will need a half a yard of lining fabric, a half a yard of your main fabric, your fabric scissors, your sewing pins or your sewing clips, a tapestry needle, a loop turner, a measuring tape, swimwear elastic that is 1/4 inch wide, no more than 3/8 inch wide. You can also use rubber elastic. And you will need your swimwear pattern, which I will link mine in the description below. Starting with my main fabric, I'm going to cut 2 of my bikini top, 2 of my neck straps, and 1 of my back strap on fold, so my fabric is folded in half. And as you can see, I have it going against the grain. But swimwear fabric is usually a 4-way stretch, so if you needed to go this way instead of with the grain, you could do that as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut these out so we can have our main fabric done. For my lining fabric, all I need is 2 of my top, so I have it on fold going with the grain line, and I'm going to cut 2 of these. Okay, now we're going to cut out our elastic that we need. So this is for our cups, so I'm just going to measure that and cut it. You need 4 for your cups, 2 for each cup. For your neck straps, you will need 2 of those. So I'm just going to use my guide to measure out. Now for your back strap elastic, you want to take your back strap pattern piece. And before I show you how I do this, you see I'm doing an extra small. I'm going to measure up my elastic to the extra small. So whatever size you're doing, you want to measure your elastic one size shorter. So I'm going to take my elastic and I'm going to line it up to that fold line. And I'm going to bring it to my extra small line. And from there, I'm going to fold my elastic in half, so I get double that length. And then I'm going to cut it. And that's how you'll get your back elastic piece. Now that you have all your pattern pieces cut out, you want to take your top pieces and you want to take 1 of your main fabric pieces and 1 of your lining pieces and put them right sides together. And then you're going to pin those along the side edges. And you're going to do the same thing with the other cup. Right sides together, 1 main fabric, 1 lining. And you're going to pin those along the sides. Then you're going to take your straps. So this is my back strap. And you're going to turn the edges long ways. You're going to turn that in and fold along the edge on this whole strap. And you're going to do the same thing with your neck pieces. You want to turn them in like this, sandwich it, and pin it along the edge. Okay, now I'm at the sewing machine. I'm going to take my top and I'm going to stitch the side at a 1/2 inch seam allowance, making sure I back stitch at the beginning and at the end. Now I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Now after you sew all of your pieces, you'll have these tail ends of your thread. You want to make sure you go ahead and clip those off. Okay, so now I have my first cup sewn, and I'm going to do the same thing to my next cup. Okay, now we have our strap, so I'm going to sew this at 1/4 of an inch. Now I have all of my straps sewn and I have my top pieces sewn, so I'm going to take these over to the serger. If you do not have a serger, you want to use an overcasting stitch and go over and lock in your edges on your straps. And then for your tops, you want to trim off this excess seam allowance to about 1/4 of an inch, and then you want to use your overcasting stitch to go over your edges. So now I'm at my serger, making sure that my knife is engaged. I'm going to serge my edges and make sure I cut off the excess seam allowance. Make sure you're leaving tails at the end so you don't get any fraying of your stitches. After you have all of your straps serged, we're going to work on the neck straps first. So I've already cut off my tail ends because we're not going to need those to stay on right now. And then you're going to also take your neck strap elastic. So make sure you're using the elastic for your neck strap. On one end of our neck strap, we're going to mark down 1/2 inch. And then I'm just going to use a pin to mark that 1/2 inch. Next, I'm going to take my elastic and line it up to that 1/2 inch mark. And then I'm going to pin that in place. And then making sure I keep my neck strap straight, I'm just going to guide my elastic down to the other end of my neck strap. And I'm going to line that end up to the very edge of my neck strap. Then I'm going to pin that in place. Now you want to take this to your sewing machine or your serger, and you're going to use a zigzag stitch if you're using your sewing machine, and stitch your elastic from this end all the way to the other end. And if you're using your serger, you want to serge your elastic onto your neck strap, making sure you have your knife feature cut off so you don't cut off any excess or any extra fabric off of your neck strap. You don't want any fabric cutting off your neck strap. So take this to your sewing machine or your serger and attach your elastic to your neck strap. After you have both ends serged, don't cut off your neck straps. I'm going to show you what to do with those necks. After you serge your elastic to your neck strap, you want to grab a tapestry needle, which has a bigger hole, as you can see, and we're going to weave our ends back into our stitches. So I'm just going to trim off a little bit of my tail end. I'm going to take my tapestry needle and weave in these thread ends. So I'm going to pull it through my needle like that, and then I'm just going to come under a couple of my serger stitches and weave my threads through. You don't want to just cut off your tail end because you can get some unraveling of your thread. So always weave in your ends, and I'm going to do that to both sides. Now that we've done this, you want to do it to your other neck strap, and we're going to start working on the back strap. Now we're going to take our back strap and our back strap elastic, and on both ends we're going to measure 1/2 inch down. And from that 1/2 inch, you're going to start your elastic at that point. So I'm going to pin that in place. And then again, you want to make sure your strap stays straight as well as your elastic. You don't want any twisting. And from my other end of my back strap, I'm going to measure that down 1/2 inch and place my elastic there and pin. And now, just like you did your neck strap, you want to take this to your sewing machine or your serger and stitch this to your back strap. After you have all of your straps and elastic attached, you want to take a loop turner and turn your straps right side out. So I'm going to take my loop turner and feed it through my strap. Then once I get to the edge, I'm going to hook that on there and begin turning my strap right side out. And you want to be careful when you're doing this. You want to make sure that you do not pull too hard so that you don't break any of your threads. So turn all of your straps out, and then once you turn your straps out, the ends with the part where you left it 1/2 inch down from the edge, you can either leave it raw like this and decide to tie it at the ends like this, or you can take your raw edge and flip them in the ends where you left a 1/2 inch gap. You can take it, flip in those ends to get something like this, and then you can do a stitch across, and then that will get you an end that looks like this with the stitch across. So you can either tie it or flip in your ends and do a stitch across, but you want to go ahead and do that to all of your straps and then come back. Now you want to take your top piece, and using your loop turner, you want to take your neck strap on the raw edge where your elastic comes all the way to the end, and you want to come in through the pointed part of your top with your loop turner and bring in your neck strap, making sure your neck strap stays flat and that it's aligned to the top of this. So as you can see, my neck strap is flat in there. Now we're going to take this to the sewing machine and stitch across at 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now I'm going to take this to my serger and I'm going to cut off the excess fabric. If you don't have a serger, you want to trim this down to about a 1/4 inch seam allowance and then use your overcasting stitch. Okay, now we're going to take our top piece and we're going to grab our cup elastic pieces, and with the wrong side of the right fabric, your main fabric, so you have your lining and you have your main fabric, we're going to attach the elastic to the main fabric side. So I'm going to pin my elastic to this top, but I like to come down about 1/4 of an inch, and then I'm going to pin that in place. And then I'm going to take my other end of the elastic and pin it at the end, pin it at the bottom of the cup. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my other piece of elastic. So I'm going to pin that 1/4 of an inch from the top. And then I'm going to pin the other end at the bottom of my cup. Now, as you can see, the elastic is shorter than our cup length. So when you go to sew your elastic, you're going to stretch out the elastic without stretching out your cup. So literally just straighten it out and your cup will just fall in place. And you're going to either use your serger, serge your elastic to the cup, or you're going to use a zigzag stitch. Now, as before, you want to take your tail ends and weave those in. Once you've weeded in all your tail ends, you're going to take the neck strap and just pull your cup right side out. And you want to make sure that the pointed edge, the elastic, and everything is flat. So once you pull that straight out, you want to take your bottom edges and line them up, and you're going to do a basting stitch across the bottom. So to make sure that your cup stays in place, you can put some pins or some clips in there to make sure everything stays lined up. So now you're going to take this to your sewing machine and you're going to baste along this edge, and after you baste it, you want to use your serger or overlock stitch to overlock your edges. After you've overlocked your edges, you're going to take the bottom edge of your cup and fold it inward towards your lining. You're going to fold this up 5/8 of an inch. So I'm going to use my tape measure. Make sure we have 5/8 of an inch. And then I'm going to pin that in place. And then I'm going to do the same thing to my other end. And then pin that in place. Now you want to do this across your whole bottom, but as you can see, the middle, it will kind of scrunch up a little bit. To get that to fold in 5/8 nicely, you will do a tiny stretch and it will fall in place like that. So I'm going to continue to measure across, making sure I have 5/8 all the way across. And then I'm going to do a little stretch, and then I'm going to flatten that down. And at this point, it should automatically just fall into 5/8. And then you're going to stitch along this edge to tack down your fold line. Now, because you have thick pieces of elastic at this end and at that end, you may want to use your tweezers to kind of help push your fabric through, because it may hesitate sewing. And make sure you backstitch at the beginning and the end. And then when you get to those parts that were sticking up because of the curve, you still want to do a slight stretch to flatten it out when you sew. Now you don't want to overstretch it, you just want to stretch it till it's flat. Now the last step to your bikini is to add in your back strap. So you want to take your loop turner and feed it through both of the tunnels that we made on the cups. So just feed it through those tunnels. And then you want to take one end of your back strap and attach it to your loop turner. And then just feed that through that tunnel. So now I got that through both tunnels. You just want to pull your back strap till you reach about the halfway point. And once you reach the halfway point, your cup is done. You should have you something that look like this. A nice simple triangle bikini top. If you like this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And turn that notification bell on because we're going to have more sew alongs to come. You don't want to be left behind. You want to be able to sew the things you need. So just go ahead and join the community. Thank you.